Welcome to the show. Welcome to a beautiful fall day in South Bend. I hope you're having a great one, along with Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stires. Like, this is what fall is supposed to feel like, Vince, not that wet, cold garbage that we had last week and part of the week. Nasty.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on that one. It's been last couple of days have been really, really like just absolute fall weather. I was up at Hillsdale to watch Dylan. It was parents' weekend, and you get that like that movie-esque like fall with the trees changing in the Midwest when you walk on the college campus. I was walking with my wife. I was like, this is college right here. This is it. And she's like, yeah, in 2 weeks it'll be like winter. So enjoy it. I was like, all right, Debbie Downer, thanks.
Fair point. Fair point. That's basically what it is. There's a couple roads out by where I live where there's just these tall trees on both sides, and it's yellows and oranges and reds, and it's kind of like you're just driving down this tree tunnel, and it's very colorful. Looks beautiful.
Yeah, I mean the Midwest this time of year is just unbelievable. Like, it's just beautiful. This is what I think about when I think of football and fall and the whole deal. And so hopefully it sticks around for a little while longer, but and this is also the best time to walk around Notre Dame and like kind of take it all in. And
very true.
You think about, got the Rudy music playing in the background, it's like, yes, this is it right here. But you're right. In a few weeks it'll be gone, but enjoy it while it's here, because this is the perfect weather. It's a little long sleeve jean, weather.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Yeah, few weeks it'll just be nasty and wet, and there won't be any nice looking colors in the trees. They'll all be on my yard, and I'm figuring out, am I going to mulch those? What am I going to do with that? So
I know.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I got a yard full of pine needles as well.
Oh, you got some pine trees back there?
Oh, massive. The tall ones that are right next to my driveway. Those are pretty much all pines, like tall pines.
And they lose their stuff, huh?
Yeah, needles blow all over the place, and I got to clean up my gutters. And
brutal.
Yeah, good times. Good times. Well, we are coming out of a bye week, and we've got Notre Dame and Boston College coming up this Saturday in Chestnut Hill. The Fighting Irish and Eagles will kick off at 3:30 Eastern time, and that means you'll hear it right here on Sports Radio WSBT and the Notre Dame Radio Network, as well as the Odyssey app, AUDACY. This Saturday, the first of 5 remaining games in the regular season. After going a little bit more than a week without hearing from Marcus Freeman, we did hear from him today, and we've got a lot of his comments we're going to get to today. I forgot to get this pulled up before we got started here, but a couple of course, there it went. It took a long time to load, and then as soon as it loaded, I had already closed it out. I'm probably not going to be able to read this because the zoom in function doesn't work on this computer that I'm in. My eyes are just too. Jaden Greathouse and Devontae Smith both remain questionable.
Those are the questionable list was kind of healthy. This coming out of a bye, I was a little surprised at how lengthy the list was.
Especially when you look at, you never know with concussions in terms of lingering stuff. But Will Black and Logan Thomas were both out for the last game against USC because of concussion protocol, and they remain questionable because of their concussions. I'm sure there's probably just some steps in the test that they have to pass here early on, but like Micah Gilbert, Cooper Flanagan, they are both questionable. We did see Flanagan make his debut against USC.
Yes, we did.
Might have missed it if you blinked, but he was out there for a little bit. But Smith and Greathouse, and Jordan Botelho, still questionable with concussion protocol and all that kind of stuff as well. But Greathouse and Smith, like the two in terms of injuries, are the great question marks, I guess, right now. So
yeah, like I said, it just seemed like a longer list. But questionable is better than out, I suppose. And so we'll see what happens. And again, not to disparage Boston College or anything, but if there's a game to sit out, it might be this one. Just throwing that out there. I mean, it is what it is.
It's true. It's true. I was sitting right behind Tim Priester at the press conference today, and he brought up, well, they play hard, but that's about the only thing that you can really, say in their favor.
I mean, that's great. They should play hard. They're
Yeah,
all on scholarship.
you would
They're
hope
all
they play hard.
they're all making NIL money. They should play hard.
I
Yes.
know. I know.
It's that
So
age-old
does he,
question.
but
You know what I
yeah.
mean? We have that argument, like I think like once or twice every year
Mhm.
about, playing hard and not quitting and, those kinds of things. And we've seen what it looks like when high-level athletes quit. It happened down at LSU this weekend.
Oh, man. Well, zing right off the bat, coming in with some Brian Kelly
Couldn't help
high
it.
heat, as if you didn't get enough in 3.5 hours last night. You just brought it today. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it, because Brian Kelly was, of course, fired yesterday at LSU. Kelly brought Marcus Freeman to Notre Dame from Cincinnati, also kept him from going to LSU in a little somewhat interesting twist, I guess.
Yes.
Almost a little bit more than 4 years later. But Freeman talked a little bit about Kelly. He was asked about, his response to Brian Kelly being fired, as well as the state of college football, with a slew of Power 4 programs already firing their head coaches before the month of October is even over. So here's Marcus Freeman.
Said this previously, you never want to see anybody lose their job. That person, the coaches, the families, the people affected, the players, especially somebody right? And at the end of the day, you're always rooting for, right? Coach Kelly gave me an opportunity to come here, and, I'm always rooting for him. But it's also the profession we've chosen. We've chosen this profession, and we know that can be a result of choosing this profession. But you asked about the state, like the state of college football. It is what it is. Like it or not like it, it is what it is, and you can't worry about that. You got to worry about giving your all to this team and putting this program in a position to have success. Right? And I think I've said this previously, but it's a reminder to be grateful for what you have. Because if you're not grateful for what you have, you'll find a way to lose. And I'm not talking about a coach. I'm talking about in life. Like, if you're not grateful for what you have, you're gonna find a way to lose it. And that's, again, every time I hear some of those things, reminder that, man, the gratitude I have for this opportunity at this place, with the people I get to work with, the players I get to be involved with, man, I'm grateful.
All right, Vince. So there's Marcus Freeman again, kind of asked the multi-pronged question about both Brian Kelly and the state of college football with all these coaches fired. What do you think about what you heard there?
I think he makes some good points, and he pretty quickly pivoted to not talking about Brian Kelly, which is probably pretty smart. Look, if you put yourself in Marcus Freeman's shoes, you have to be thankful to Brian Kelly. He did bring you to Notre Dame. I mean, he made it possible for you to come here, and if you didn't come here as the defensive coordinator, you wouldn't be the head coach right now, plain and simple. So, he does owe a debt of gratitude to Brian Kelly. There's no doubt about it, and he only had to deal with Brian Kelly for less than a year. So, and then he was off to LSU. So he probably doesn't have a whole lot of deep-seated emotional issues like some of the rest of us when it comes to Brian Kelly. So
yeah, I mean, it's like I got this great opportunity because of Brian Kelly, and he's got his job. I've got mine. It's completely different for Marcus Freeman compared to everybody else, I think, in the way they look at this around Notre Dame football.
Yeah, and I like to remind people of that, the situation that was brought up where – it was between LSU and Notre Dame as to where he was going to go be a defensive coordinator, and he chose Notre Dame over LSU, even though LSU was going to pay him more money. Not Notre Dame wasn't going to pay him chump change, don't get me wrong, but LSU was going to pay more money.
More money is more money. You know that.
More money.
I know that. If anyone knows it, you know that.
Yeah, so he chose to come to Notre Dame over LSU, and money was not a deciding factor. Let's fast forward 4 years from now. I still don't think it would be a deciding factor. So people can take a chill pill when it comes to Freeman leaving for LSU specifically.
I think so as well. This is kind of a message that we have to repeat every week.
I know.
But, I mean, it's true, because every one of these, there are three pretty high-profile jobs that have come open. This one, Florida, and Penn State. And each time Marcus Freeman's name has come up in some capacity from, people nationally, people around these programs. And we'll get into that aspect of this specifically in rapid fire, because Josh Pate was on ESPN this morning. And well, it was after, like, they actually asked him, like, the question about who do you look for if you're LSU. They didn't ask Feinbaum, they asked Pate. So I thought that was interesting. But like, big picture, when you look at this thing from 2000 through 2012, I saw this last night after Brian Kelly was fired. 2000 through 2012, only 9 total head coaches were fired before the calendar flipped to the month of October. In this season alone, 8 head coaches have been fired, and it's not even November. The stakes have gone up, and, like you hear Marcus Freeman talk about appreciation and all that stuff. And I think that probably a lot of coaches have that same kind of perspective, because, I mean, it can't, just look at Ed Orgeron as an example. Ed Orgeron had one of the best single season teams in the history of college football, and not 2 years later, he was fired. Like, that's how quickly the whole thing can evaporate.
Yeah.
That's obviously what led to Brian Kelly being down there. So, I mean, 2 coaches who were in the top 10 in the national rankings at the beginning of the season, both of them having national championship aspirations and expectations, are both unemployed now. And it's still only the month of October. And of course, I'm talking about Brian Kelly and Brian Kelly B, like James Franklin.
Seriously.
Are they the same guy? Do they share the same brain? I mean, only they can tell you that, I think. But they're both gone, and it's not even November yet. And it hasn't even been 4 years since Brian Kelly bolted Notre Dame for LSU with all those, burnt ends in his belly and all that stuff, from courtesy of Tobias Merriweather's dad. But, again, it turned out to be a significant day, not only for Brian Kelly and for Notre Dame, ultimately, indirectly, the way things worked out. Like, I think if you're Notre Dame, I think you're ultimately pretty happy. Most Notre Dame people, the biggest thing, beyond the issues that Brian Kelly and the baggage that Brian Kelly had with him while he was here at Notre Dame, the lingering thing, just like with Cincinnati, is the way he left. Not too many people happy about that. But it's also, as we sit here doing this show, not only on Sports Radio WSBT, but on the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel, that incident, Brian Kelly bolting for LSU, is really what launched the Irish Breakdown podcast platform, right? Like, there was, kind of go back to the roots of that a little bit, because it was you and Brian Driscoll. It was before, maybe 6-7 months, ahead of when I went to work for Irish Breakdown. But his departure was ultimately the launching point for Driscoll and you and what has become this podcast platform that Irish Breakdown has right now.
I mean, we were plugging along and we were doing our thing up until that point. And I remember very vividly, actually, the night that happened, because I was the head baseball coach at Riley High School at the time. And I was in charge of the concession stand at a basketball game that night. And so I'm just kind of, walking around the school, just making sure the guys are doing what they're supposed to do, handing out hot dogs and doing whatever. And all of a sudden, we get the news that this all went down, and Brian's like, we got to go and do a show. So I literally ran up to my classroom in the building, and we did a live show about Brian Kelly leaving. And we were there. We
got home at midnight.
Yeah, because the janitors kicked me out of the school. They're like, dude, you got to go. Like, we're done here.
You need not be here anymore.
You need to leave the building. Otherwise, who knows how long we would have gone. But that show, basically, so many people found us, that night, because we went live almost immediately. And I think people were just looking for an outlet and trying to figure out what was going on and just everything. And that, I mean, it definitely gave the company the kick in the butt and the send off, we were looking for. And, haven't looked back since. But yeah, that was a big night for the company. There's no doubt about that.
Carlos says I'm going to sound like the biggest weirdo, but there are a few episodes that I rewatch of IB, and this is one of them. Okay.
There you go.
Well,
there you go.
That was probably like the first emergency pod that IB did.
Yes.
I would
imagine,
right?
100%. Absolutely the first
And that's
one.
really, again, like when you talk about numbers and stuff like that, what it has snowballed into is in terms of, a big part of the Irish breakdown economy, I guess you'd say. Like you guys weren't doing daily shows back then, right?
No, and they weren't what they are now. I would help and I would do a show during like my prep period, so I would be on for like 45 minutes, that kind of a thing. So it would be kind of a quick little deal. I'd scarf my lunch real quick and then do a show, and that was pre anybody else that was on the payroll. And honestly, not that anybody cares about this, but like when Brian first started, I was just doing it for free. I was doing it for fun, because I believed in what Brian wanted to do, and I love talking Notre Dame football and all of those kinds of things. I was like, the money will come, whatever. It's no big deal. And so it was just me and him just talking ball and kind of kicking the thing off. And that show that night definitely allowed me to start getting paid a little bit of money.
And the funny thing is, I was actually sitting right here in this same seat in the WSBT studio because this was before, I left WSBT to go to Irish Breakdown. And obviously now I'm back with WSBT in conjunction with Irish Breakdown. But it was a Monday, and obviously that was early December, right after the season had ended. But Brian was coming on my show to do a recruiting segment with me. And I hadn't seen anything yet, and he mentioned it. And so, like we came on, we mentioned what was going on with Kelly and looked like he was leaving and all that kind of stuff. And then boom, that was probably the same night. And then after he was done with me is probably when he hit you up and said, dude, we're podcasting tonight.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I might have to look that show up just to go down memory lane a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of what kicked it all off, man. Like it's hard to believe it was that long ago, to be perfectly honest with you.
I know.
I
know.
So
not quite 4 years. The time has flown.
Yeah.
It's flown right by. Of course, we're in
Wild.
the middle of Marcus Freeman's fourth season. Joe says, couldn't have happened to a better man. The truth of Kelly has set them free. And a lot of Notre Dame fans who feel that way, and a lot of LSU fans who have come around after having to, there's the infamous interview that Brian did was it Tiger Bait down there with LSU?
Preston Guy is the co-host of that show. He actually came on our show last night.
Really?
Oh man, it was a welcome to the club moment. I think it was like welcome to the fraternity,
because it got pretty heated when Brian was on with that.
Yes, I think more so with the other guy who does the show, but still, they were throwing shade Brian's way. I thought, and then all the LSU people thought that we were all upset that he left and it was sour grapes and all of these different things. We're like, guys, you don't understand what you're getting. We're trying to tell you. We're trying to help you.
Yeah. And
we got a lot of pushback, Brian specifically, a lot of pushback for going down that road. But it took 4 years. I think
after year 2, they started to swing a little bit.
Right.
Definitely after last season, there were a lot more who had come to realize what Brian Kelly was all about. And obviously with each loss this season culminating in what happened against Texas A&M in a home game, by the way, it was pretty bad. And from what I understand, there were, like donors, boosters going from luxury suite to luxury suite, like passing the hat, seeing who would kick in for the buyout and stuff like that. Saturday night. Just crazy.
Oh, I found that video. It has 36,000 views.
Wow.
So that's pretty good for us.
Wonder if it's dialing a few more up today.
Right.
Craig says if BK is out of work, would Brian hire him as a consultant?
That's a hard pass on that one. Not that he would, by the way, but it's definitely a hard pass on that one.
I don't think BK is ever going to take that call.
No.
Best thing BK did was hire Marcus Freeman. Second was leaving Notre Dame, is what Craig said.
That's fair. I mean, Brian Kelly did a lot of good things, at Notre Dame. A lot of good things, but leaving, it was time. It was time. The clock had run out.
And I'll just say, because in the press box, again, this is back when it was just you and Brian at Irish Breakdown, and I was still here at the radio station, but we all, I think we sat pretty close to each
Oh
other
yeah.
still back then, if I remember right. And, knowing Brian going back to when, we had worked together a couple of stops ago, he was always talking about this program has reached its ceiling under Brian Kelly. They need, they've got to get someone else who can take them to the next level. That's what it's going to take. And it just, like, when he was saying it, it was just kind of a pipe dream, because what you needed was an event like Brian Kelly leaving himself, because if Brian Kelly was going to be fired, like, that would probably mean that you had something close to a repeat of 2016, and then the next guy is trying to dig back out of a hole. He's not just taking a handoff and, taking the baton and running with it and elevating that way, the way Marcus Freeman has done. But I mean, as it turned out, it was very prophetic, obviously, turned out to be right. And that's exactly you got a dream scenario if you're Notre Dame. Brian Kelly left, went somewhere else, took his baggage with him, handed it off to someone who has elevated the program, and the program now is, it was in better shape when Brian Kelly left than when Brian Kelly took it.
Absolutely.
The program is also now in better shape when Marcus Freeman arrived, and, and where Marcus Freeman has taken it right now.
Look, Brian Kelly was trying to leave multiple times from Notre Dame. 2012, 2015.
Flirtations with the NFL.
All
see what the NFL's about.
There were multiple
He couldn't
times.
get anyone to hire him. Yeah.
Correct. And he, like, the first time that LSU was looking for a head coach, he reached out to LSU to try to come down there, and they're like, no. And then they had the change, and then they actually, there was obviously some mutual admiration there, but he tried to leave multiple times. And if that doesn't tell you, what you need to know about his thoughts of the Notre Dame job versus other jobs,
right,
then I don't know what does. I mean, that should tell you right there.
All he saw was the limitations and the fact that he wasn't willing to work hard enough for it.
Correct.
Now, he changed some things. He did, there are a lot of changes that he brought to Notre Dame like in many ways, dragging, a historic program into the 21st century, from facilities and, just a lot of other things that he did. Yes, there were some changes that were made, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, we've given you this. We've given you this. We've given you this. Do you really need a chef as well? Like, is that really going to be the thing that puts you over the top? Like, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you've been to the playoffs a couple of times. You've gotten blown out both times. It's put up or shut up time. And he ultimately shut up and went and took the best offer. It was good for him. And again, it's been good for Notre Dame as well.
No doubt about it. And, is he won the most at Notre Dame game wise? Yes, but he was also there the longest behind Newt Rockne, but they didn't play 12 games a year, or 13, including a bowl game. So, I mean, he was kind of a stat accumulator in that regard, because if you look at his winning percentage, he's 8th all time at Notre Dame. I mean, there's a big difference between having the most wins and being the winningest coach. You know what I mean? And so people always want to throw that stat in your face about how he's the winningest coach in Notre Dame history. Well, when you break it down a little bit more, it's not all that impressive. He was one game under 500 against ranked teams. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
It's just not, it's a bit of smoke and mirrors. Yes, he's got the most wins. No doubt about it. If Marcus Freeman's here for a decade, he will also have the most wins, of any coach in Notre Dame history. I mean, it's just a fact. So,
you make a couple playoff runs, he'll dominate what Brian Kelly's win.
Marcus Freeman was the first coach in Notre Dame history to have 14 wins in a season. It's because he was actually able to play 15 or 16 or whatever it ended up being, 16. So, I mean, it is like I said, it's a little bit smoke and mirrors. I'm not going to say that he didn't help Notre Dame, because he did. And we talked about this a little bit.
But in his defense, he also didn't lose to Syracuse. He didn't lose to UConn. Now, did he lose to Tulsa was that year 1 or year 2? I can always think.
And he lost a lot of games in 16 as well.
Right. Yeah. But he also didn't lose to, 2 service academies in the same season. And that's what he took the program out of. Things bottomed out in 2016. He was forced to make some moves, and he ultimately made the moves. Yeah.
And he was, we talked about this last night, and this will be the last thing I say about it. He was an extremely hard worker when he was at Grand Valley State and when he was at Central Michigan, even when he was at Cincinnati, and even when he started at Notre Dame. Extremely hard worker, great recruiter. I mean, you don't win 2 national championships at Grand Valley State unless you're a hard worker, because you don't have the stuff that you have at Notre Dame or even at Central Michigan at Grand Valley State. You know what I mean? So, like, he's a very, very hard worker, no doubt about it. The problem is the work ethic started to change a little bit in his tenure at Notre Dame.
A lot more delegation.
Yes.
And just like the whole, you remember the 2016, one of the things that, and going into 2017, will the players want me around more and all that, like he had checked out off and on. And so he became more engaged for a little bit, but then ultimately he fell back into his old patterns of being more detached, not being around as much, more golf and more, whatever,
right. Exactly.
boats and everything else. And it's like delegating everything and not being nearly as involved with the players themselves.
Correct.
That's just not his personality.
No.
At the end of the day.
And it was just a bad recipe.
It is Marcus Freeman's. Yeah.
It was just a bad recipe towards the end. And, it didn't work out. And he left, and that's okay, because I think Notre Dame's in a better spot now. So
we've got to take a break. There's some comments, including a super chat, that are piled up here, and we'll come back and get to them. And we'll also hear more from Marcus Freeman, some other comments that he had on CJ Carr. What about his assistants? The chance that they could possibly move on and become head coaches with all these different openings across college football. Some comments from Marcus Freeman on that today as well. We'll do that when we return. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. Been talking Brian Kelly. I think Mr. Magoo might have a good point here in the YouTube chat. Forget crying belly. Let's talk. He said "utball." Maybe he just forgot the F. I don't know. I tell you what, we will do. I do find this one interesting though, from our old friend Penn State Sports Talk, who's dropped in every now and then. Good to have you back, Penn State Sports Talk. Haven't seen as much of you. Straight losses. Let's be honest. Let's just call it what it is. That's kind of where it fell off. But he says, I'd take Brian Kelly. I find it really interesting that a Penn State guy would say that, because us here who have experienced Brian Kelly and who have seen James Franklin from the outside literally feel like they are the same coach.
Correct.
They produce the same results. They win a lot of games that they're supposed to win in general, but don't quite pass the mustard when it comes to playing those ranked teams, the harder opponents.
Yeah, look, man, I am not a fan of Penn State by any stretch of the imagination, but I would not wish him on you for that, because you just fired a guy who is that guy. You don't. That's not a route that you want to go. You're better off going a completely different direction. Go see Dan Lanning. Go see, try Lane Kiffin. Like, whatever you want to do. Because Penn State thinks that they're up here, so that's fine. Take some big swings and then see who you can get. But no, don't do it. Don't subject yourself to that. Do not do it, man.
We'll come back to the Brian Kelly stuff in rapid fire. There's some more specific Brian Kelly talk that we're going to have at the start of rapid fire in the 6 o'clock hour, the start of the 6 o'clock hour. I wanted to get to some of these other comments from Marcus Freeman that he had from his press conference today, including, this kind of ties in to the Brian Kelly stuff. Is Freeman in a position to pound the table, he was asked, for his assistant coaches who may want to become head coaches? And here's what Freeman said.
I think that's coming from the assumption that everybody is dying to be a head coach, right? Like, I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if everybody wakes up and says, I'm dying to be a head coach. If they are, I would stand on the table for every one of our coaches. We have some of the I'm humbled by the coaching staff that we have, right? And they all deserve an opportunity, if they want to be a head coach, to lead a program. And I believe they'll be successful because they do it for the right reasons. It isn't, they don't do this for individual glory. They do it because they want to help young people. And if that's at the core of who you are and the core of your heart, you're going to have success, because you're going to know that having success takes more than just you. And we got a whole bunch of coaches that understand that. And I hope they all do get the opportunity if that's what they aspire to do. And I'm going to be their biggest advocate. You hate losing great coaches, because we're not in this position. I'm not in this position without working with great coaches and great players. But you want every individual coach, support staff member, to do what's best for them and get opportunities that they desire to have. And so if me being an advocate for them can help them, I'll be the guy on the table standing and yelling and advocating for them.
So there's Marcus Freeman talking about his assistants as possible candidates for some of these head coaching vacancies. I don't know about you, Vince. Like, one guy comes to mind, Mike Denbrock, in terms of, natural jump from where he is right now as an offensive coordinator. He's been at Cincinnati to the playoff. He's been at LSU, produced a Heisman Trophy winner, really successful offense right now. Are there other guys on the staff, though, who would make sense for any of these current vacancies?
Well, obviously there's vacancies top to bottom as far as, group of five and power four and all of these different things. I think Al Washington has expressed interest in being a head coach. He interviewed for the Boston College job. I realize that's his alma mater, so that gave him a bit of a leg up. But he obviously has interest. Otherwise, why would he interview?
Sure.
But
it also, it did seem like there was a lot of interest on their part because of him, sure, and the fact that he is an alum and his background and those kind of, like, and I'm not knocking out Washington at all. Like it feels like for him, then, other than Boston College, or a smaller profile school, probably, it feels like the next step for Washington is still like potentially becoming a defensive coordinator rather than a jump straight to being a head coach. That's just my feeling. And again, it's not a knock on him.
No, I get it.
Because he's a position coach. Not many position coaches move straight from there to being a head coach someplace, especially at a Power 4 program.
True. I would say guys that have, I don't know, there's a lot of young coaches on the staff as well. So obviously they've got some work to do before they're going to be a head coach. Max Bulla, I suppose, comes to mind in that regard, guys like that. But I would say that Mickens and Washington, I think, would be the first two possibilities for a head coaching job. I don't think Mike Denbrock wants to be a head coach. I think that ship has sailed at this point.
It's what it feels like.
I wouldn't even
said as much.
I wouldn't even put him on the list, to be perfectly honest with you, because I think if he wanted to be a head coach, he would have been one by now. He's had plenty of accolades and things like that. He could have done it. I don't think he wants to. I think he's pretty happy with his position. So the next two on the list for me are Washington and Mickens. Those would be the two guys. Because look, if I'm the athletic director at Kent State, for example, or if I'm the athletic director at UAB, I would love to have me a Mike Mickens as my head coach.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I realize he hasn't been a coordinator, but he's helped coordinate the defense. He's put 3-star guys in the NFL. He's made them into All-Americans. Like, he can coach, and he's pretty charismatic as well. So I would reach out to a guy like that if I was at a group of 5, 6, whatever they call it nowadays, AD. I would.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think all those guys are eventually it's going to happen for them, but like the immediacy of it, that's what I don't. And there are, because of the ripple effect, there will be more group of 6 openings. And
because guys are going to jump and there's going to be a bunch of movement. There's going to be so many openings and there's going to be a lot of movement this offseason.
And let's be honest, I don't know that Bill O'Brien is going to be shown the door this year. Notre Dame, head coach of Notre Dame's next opponent, of course, Boston College, and the guy who ultimately got the job over Al Washington. But that's a job that could be open within a year or so. If Al Washington wants to wait, it feels like he's been in the running there twice before, and it feels like he would probably be at the top of their list again. That being said, that is not going to be an easy place for anyone to go and win, because of you're in a big city, you're not in a smaller, college football market, because of where NIL is and all those different things. Like they were very excited about Bill O'Brien last year, and he had a decent first year last year, but look where it is.
Things have fallen apart to a degree. Yeah.
People are trying to getting me to go the 6-7 route today for some reason. I don't know what it is. People are a little bit
you don't have a middle schooler in your house.
I do not, fortunately.
So consider yourself lucky on that one.
How do they say it? I've never actually heard someone say.
Really?
Tell me how they say
You're
it.
going to make me do it, aren't you?
I am.
6-7, and you got to do the hand motions up and down too.
Right.
Like, oh God, it's so.
I heard it came from a song that I've never heard.
It started out as an interview where a basketball player was talking about how tall he is, and then a guy ripped that and put it into a song, and now it has become a thing for some reason.
Basketball player. So it was like a sample of this guy saying
pretty much
7.
Yes.
He stuck it into his song, and that's where it.
Yeah, that's what I gather.
It's like the 6-7, like
6-7. Yeah, you got to do the up and down hands too. Can't believe I just did that. I'm gonna have to have my kids watch the show now.
You and I have proven many times over we are old and out of touch.
There's no question. We can recall the Bend conversation too, I suppose.
Yep, that's right. I still haven't asked Jesse, like if that was. I don't remember, being around him and coaching teams and stuff like that. I don't remember anyone with the Bend.
I don't either.
There are people just a few years younger than him who tell me it's a thing. So,
you know what? I'm going to reach out to.
Got to go with the sample size.
I'm going to reach out to our buddy Frankie Karcheski, who's the head coach at South Bend Adams. He's obviously a high school teacher. He's a high school football coach. You know, he's in that 29 range, and he's around kids all the time. I want to find out if he hears it all the time. Is it the Bend? That's what I'm reaching out to him. That's what's going to happen.
I don't know if you heard, Frankie's mom just passed away, by the way.
I did not know that.
Rest in peace to her. One of the great moms
She's
from that
awesome.
era.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Very sad. Let's go ahead and take a break. We'll come back. We'll hear some more Marcus Freeman comments. Coming up next, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues, along with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. Jack in the YouTube chat says, thanks for telling him what 6'7" means. My goddaughters were saying that all afternoon yesterday.
Oh.
I have no idea what they were talking about. Do now.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying.
Yeah, I'm fortunate I don't have to be around any of that. You hear it all the time. So
all the time would be an understatement. Yeah.
All right. We've been hearing some comments from Marcus Freeman this hour. We're going to jump back into the Brian Kelly conversation in the second hour with some other stuff pertaining to Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame as well, kind of tied into that. Freeman, though, at his press conference today, was asked about any message that he had for CJ Carr during the bye week as he gets that, got that midseason break after being thrown into the fire to start his career.
Evaluate the last performance like we do every week and see where we can improve, why we made the decisions we made, and what, if presented with that opportunity again, what decisions would we make moving forward? And then going out to work, going back to practice and working on those things. So identifying the answers like we just talked about, and then putting them into work and then making sure when it presents itself in the game that we make the right decision. But man, he has done a wonderful job in these first, I think, 7 games. I think he's first-time quarterback in terms of leading this offense, in terms of what he has on his plate. He's done a tremendous job, and there's more. That's the exciting part. There's more to his game that I'm looking forward to seeing how he continues to elevate in these next couple games.
Kind of curious to see, Vince, kind of where, like with some time off, a time for him to have some extra time to sit back, look at some things, both himself and the offense, and conversations with Mike Denbrock, kind of where this does go now down the stretch of these last 5 games of the regular season.
Well, we've talked about it a bunch. I mean, he is a student of the game, right? And so giving him an opportunity to just kind of sit back and just analyze kind of the way the season has gone so far, go back over the game that he's played, go back over, who he's going to play, what has worked, what has not worked, get with Mike Denbrock. I mean, that's the relationship between a quarterback and his offensive coordinator is massive. I mean, look at UCLA and what they're able to do, it's a big deal. And so I think them continuing to learn each other, learn what each other does well, and kind of going down that road, I think is going to really pay dividends. And they're going to have an opportunity here, I think, the last few games of the season to really make some waves and really kind of solidify, that relationship and what this offense can be with CJ Carr at the helm.
I think that, and again, it's, like you're not going to overlook anybody or, any of those kind of things. But let's just, when you look at who they're going to face, starting with this weekend against Boston College, I think that there's some opportunities for them to really kind of fine tune some things and, do some things that maybe kind of push his comfort zone a little bit, give him just some opportunities to continue to expand, and the offense a chance to continue to expand. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that looks like, because you got BC, you got Navy, you got Syracuse. No, I'm leaving Pittsburgh. You got Syracuse, and then Stanford to close it out. I'm trying to kind of figure out who Stanford is, because they've at least, like I realize that Miami game looked like a complete lopsided, and that's the way it turned out. But like for a half anyway, Stanford was kind of laying into them a little bit.
Thought they were going to pull it off. It was 14-7 late in the second quarter, I think it was. Pouring rain, the whole deal. I'm like, yeah, Stanford's going to cover. That's all I needed. Need him to cover. And the next thing I knew, I looked at the final score. I was like, Stanford did not cover. Not even close.
Not the way it turned out. No, not at all. Billy Schrauth, of course, is out for the rest of the season with a knee injury, unfortunately. And, well, maybe not for the rest of the season, but for the foreseeable future with a knee injury, I guess I should say. I was thinking Ashton Craig when I said rest of the season, so I apologize for that. But Sullivan Absher is going to be in at left guard this week. So what gives Marcus Freeman confidence? If I get my cut pulled up here, I was about to put you in there, in Sullivan Absher.
Confident, and the reason I'm confident is because of the work he's put in while he waits, right? He's waited his opportunity, but you always hear me say you can't wait. You got to work while you wait, and he's done that. And we had a lot of confidence in him being in the starting lineup and getting his job done.
Okay, so do you share Marcus Freeman's confidence, Vince, in Sullivan Absher?
Sullivan Absher is basically the sixth man, essentially, for this offensive line, the way things kind of started. And obviously he was battling at right guard, kind of lost that battle, but still the sixth man and the kind of the first man up to take really whatever position was open. And so, yes, I feel pretty confident that Sullivan Absher can do a good job in that spot. He's not Billy Schrauth. There's a reason Billy Schrauth is who he is, and there's a reason that he was starting, right? But Sullivan Absher will go in, and he'll be fine. He will be steady. he will get the job done. And hopefully he's keeping the spot warm when Billy gets healthy again. I mean, that's really what we can hope for. And he wouldn't be the sixth man if they didn't have confidence in him. And so I have confidence in him. If there's another injury, we're having a different conversation, though.
Ooh, man.
You know what I mean?
No
because
kidding.
Now you're looking at a situation where
you're
looking at guys that don't have a lot of experience.
Yeah, exactly. And if Joe Rudolph has done nothing else, it's have the next man in on the offensive line ready to play at a very high level the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like when you look at the injuries, they had multiple injuries last year. They just kept plugging guys in. It just really didn't miss a beat for the most part. They overcame a lot of them, across the line. The only guy who played every game last year was Emil Wagner, and those other four positions were all impacted by injuries, and Joe Rudolph had the next guy ready to go. And as you said, Sullivan Absher was the sixth man on the line already. Didn't get to plug in at center because we saw how good Otting was a couple of weeks ago against USC. So obviously he was the man for the job. But again, case in point, like if Joe Otting showed us nothing else, it's that Joe Rudolph can have these guys ready to go. So I'm very confident. We saw Absher play at a pretty high level during the spring, and now he's going to get his opportunity during the season. I want to ask you before we wrap up this first hour, I want to play Marcus Freeman's comments about the kickers because that came up today. And Vince being our resident kicking expert on this show, he was asked if the kicking struggles are injury related or something else.
I think it's both. I think one, it started with injuries, but then injuries make you compensate maybe technique. And both of the field goal, the extra point and the field goal that we missed were both they were technique issues that, again, were a result of injury. I think Noah's feeling much better as we go into this week, but he's got to continuously use his technique and trust his technique and not let the previous injury really dictate the technique he uses. And so that's the thing, we got to continue to trust our technique, but we also got to make sure that if we're going to put you out there, you got to be healthy and you got to be confident in utilizing that technique.
All right, so a little bit of the chicken and the egg, it kind of sounds like there, which came first, the injury or the bad technique or whatever. It sounds like maybe the injury led to some bad technique. You're trying to overcompensate.
You're overcompensating. Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that's a fair response to the situation. Look, Noah Burnett was a very accurate kicker before he came to Notre Dame. Then he comes to Notre Dame, he gets hurt, and ever since then, he hasn't been a good kicker. So, I mean, it tracks. And it's true. Like if you're a pitcher, for example, and you hurt your arm in some form or fashion, then you try to compensate, and then your mechanics are thrown off and things like that. So, I mean, I get it, but it has to be fixed. I mean, it's like I can understand what the problem is, but it needs to be fixed. He needs to get out of his own head because that's part of it. It's a mental thing, right? Because you're like, man, if I kick the way I used to, maybe I'm going to get hurt again. It's that kind of a thing. You got to get out of your own head, which is easier said than done for some people, right? And we always look at kickers as being these mental giants because you have to be. You got to get outside of your own head. He's got to get back to what he knows and what he is, and then he'll be fine. But can he do it? I think that's the question that is on everybody's mind. Can he do it? Because is it going to matter in the regular season? Probably not.
Well,
but if they make the postseason, it's going to matter.
It feels like if there are any concerns about lingering injury or whatever, like you're at the point in the season now where a field goal or an extra point, I'm just calling it what it is. A field goal or an extra point shouldn't impact any of these next 5 games.
Correct.
So it feels like you should just be sitting this guy, physical therapy, whatever the rehab is, until he feels 100%, because odds are you get to the college football playoff, you're going to need that guy. You're going to need it, just like Jeter last year. You're going to need him to come in and make a big kick. So it feels like get as healthy as possible. You've got a couple other guys who are there as well, let them handle it until he feels 100%. And until he is 100%, don't even have him doing anything is what it feels like right now.
Agreed. I would sit him until he's 100%, and you can prove it to me in practice that it's a repeatable motion and things are doing what he's supposed to do. I mean, both of his kicks, because I had Dylan watch them, I was like, hey, what happened here? He just wrapped his foot like around the ball, which made it do what it did and push left, right? It's just bad technique. It's bad form. It's bad. I mean, you can't do it. And he's kicked a million balls. You just got to get back to doing what you know you can do. And that, like I said, it's a mental thing. So can he do it? I don't know. I don't know Noah Burnett.
We're going to take a timeout for the top of the hour. When we come back, rapid fire in hour number 2, and that will include plenty of Brian Kelly and Marcus Freeman talk. That is coming up. Rapid fire next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's hour 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. And Vince, that can mean only one thing. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Hope I wasn't muted. I am ready for rapid fire, Sean Stiers. Let's
You're
roll.
pulling a Jesse on me there for a second.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
The old mute, your lips are moving, but the mic is muted.
At least I knew I was on mute. Like, I was just trying to find it. Got it figured out, though.
Fill in the blank. LSU firing Brian Kelly in the middle of Kelly's 4th season is blank.
Par for the course these days. You mentioned it at the top of the show. I mean, all of these coaching vacancies out here this season alone is more than there was from the year 2000 to year 2012 prior to November 1st. Like, it's crazy. I mean, there are so many open jobs right now. And unfortunately, if LSU wanted to make a change, which obviously they did, they have to do it now if they want to be in the running for the best coaches that are out there, because all of these other schools are going to be going after them. You can't wait until December, apparently, anymore. The timeline has moved up considerably in college football, and that's what we're going to see, I guess, moving forward. So it's not overly surprising. He wasn't, the losses that he had this year, he was already kind of on the hot seat. I think what kept him around was his buyout, but apparently that doesn't matter anymore either when the governor gets involved.
Man, I tell you what, and the state of Louisiana, apparently, like the governor has to be involved just because of the, it's a state school, Louisiana state and the whole thing. Brian Kelly, the second largest buyout in the history of college football. And the other one belonged to Jimbo Fisher with the $77 million at Texas A&M. And of course, the irony is current LSU athletic director, Scott Woodward, hired both of them. And so like the two biggest buyouts ever attributed to the same athletic director at two different schools, which is just kind of nuts when you think about it. But Brian Kelly's firing at LSU, I mean, it always felt inevitable, I think, to those of us sitting here, but it is still shocking that it happened this soon, both from a standpoint that it is only his 4th season when he went in there with a 10-year contract and all this money, and from the fact that, as you mentioned, it's not even Halloween. Like, we're still sitting here in October, and it's not even Halloween, and he's gone. Like, his LSU tenure began with 3 straight season opening losses that all but eliminated them from the college football playoff, right out of the gate. And then they beat Clemson this year, and it's like, ooh, man, maybe he's got something down there. Well, I mean, Clemson, obviously, that win was far less impressive, as the season just went on a couple of weeks. But at the end of the day, Brian Kelly is still Brian Kelly, and all the talk about shopping down different aisles. He went to LSU, all the supposed advantages that he got down there, but he never changed his stripes. He was still just this absentee recruiter, still an absentee coach. He thought that he was gaining all these advantages by going to a place by LSU, recruiting hotbed and all this different stuff, all the supposed restraints and the shackles from Notre Dame that he left behind, and it was all going to be lifted off him. But at the end of the day, he just it feels like he just kind of became this spoiled kid who well, I've got all these advantages now. I don't have to work for it anymore, because you talked about how, in the first hour of the show, when Brian Kelly got to Notre Dame, he was a roll up his sleeves and go to work kind of guy. He had to dig Notre Dame out of the constant cycle and the constant spiral they were in. But the more he got all these different things and all these different advantages, the less he worked ultimately. And what's amazing to me, Vince, is how quickly all these national people have really turned on him as well. Like the way they're talking about him right now, it amazes me.
It is
haymakers that they're throwing on his
well way. Listen, Sean, this is how do I say this nicely? This is exactly what happened when Kelly left Notre Dame for LSU, because none of the Notre Dame beat was negative towards Brian Kelly until he left. And then all of a sudden, we didn't like him in the first place, and he did this and he did that. They sat on their hands for years and didn't say anything until he was out the door. And now I feel like the national media has now caught up as well. And now they're saying stuff that they probably knew already now that he's out the door.
Yeah.
It's like deja vu, man.
It really is when you think about it.
There was, one guy that I know of that was saying stuff about BK before he left, and he got a lot of things slung in his face. But he's getting a lot of apologies.
It's Retribution Day is what it is.
Yes, it is.
Retribution Day. That's right. David, thanks for the super chat. He says, it is safe to say it was never a Notre Dame problem, but always a BK problem. We've known that for some time now. LSU has seen the light. Glad we have Marcus Freeman. Go Irish. Finish strong. Thanks again for the super chat and the YouTube there, David.
He thought he was leaving Notre Dame in the lurch. Turns out it was probably the best thing that could have happened to Notre Dame at that time.
Yes. The Aussie family in the YouTube chat says Notre Dame's AD's main job is to get a good coach and fight to keep him. Indiana AD did his job by signing Cignetti to an extension. If Freeman leaves, the AD should be fired. Better be proactive.
He just signed an extension, guys. Like pretty darn recently, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you could lock him up for some more money, I suppose, but he's not going anywhere. Everybody needs to just breathe. Freeman really likes it here, and I know his family likes it here as well. So that means a lot.
Yeah. And I just, like the way Charlie Weiss handled, like as soon as he had one good year, his agent was beating down the door and got him the big raise from Kevin White and all that kind of stuff. It's like we talked about it back in December. How quickly should Pete Bavacqua try to lock up Marcus Freeman? And it was before the playoff game. And ultimately they gave him the extension before the playoffs even started. That, he got him to the college football playoff. They gave him the extension. I think that everything worked out, and Freeman just doesn't feel like the kind of guy who's going to keep coming back and saying, give me another raise. Give me, like that.
Right. Exactly. Kind of because that's one of the reasons that BK left is he wanted another raise and they were like, no, we just gave you one. We're not giving you another one.
Just gave you a raise. We've given you all these different benefits that you didn't have before. We've spent a lot of money to give you all these different things. It's time to win a playoff game now. And that was too much for Brian Kelly. So he wanted to go for greener pastures and go where he thought it was going to be easier. But shocker, you still have to work. I think he looked specifically at Ed Orgeron and Les Miles and went, those Rubes can win a national championship at LSU. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to. I think that was a big part of his rationale for making that move.
Look, I don't disagree with that particular, look at that job because look, the last four coaches at LSU, 3 of them won a national championship. Brian Kelly didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the guys that won it, it's like, yeah, I could do that. And what coach in their right mind wouldn't think that? So I don't really have an issue with Brian Kelly thinking that. But the reality is you do have to put the work in. And there's some personal accountability, and there's a way that you treat your players and your assistant coaches and your support staff and all of those different things. And he just doesn't do those things very well.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
didn't work out.
The way, you can say what you want about those two guys as coaches, but in terms of getting talent on the campus, that wasn't an issue. And their personalities, that wasn't an issue. Now, if you hear some of the stories about Ed Orgeron and kind of how he changed after winning the national championship, like he drifted in a different direction as well. But again, like when you talk about like the ability, like relating to your players, relating and working with your staff and, all those different things, those are things that those guys both have in spades compared to Brian Kelly.
Correct. And in, I guess, defense of Brian Kelly, I agree with what Josh has to say here. He says they didn't have to deal with NIL. 100% accurate. But you have to adapt and you have to change. Nick Saban changed. He adapted, and he won championships one way, and he also won championships a different way. He changed and adapted, and then he got out when it was NIL time. if you're going to stay in, you've got to adapt and change. And I don't think Brian Kelly did a very good job of that.
When in 2009, when LSU won the College World Series, when our friend Paul Maneri was there, led LSU to a national championship that year, my buddy Randy, my college roommate, we went to school together at the University of Kansas. He covered the LSU beat, both football and baseball down at LSU. And so I went out and, was like hanging out, going, like in the press box at the College World Series and, going to the games. And you remember it. I was running a little website at the time as well, but LSU was playing and there was an extended rain delay. And so like all the guys on the so I was kind of hanging out with guys on the LSU media beat down there because of my buddy Randy, who was on that beat. And so during this rain delay, Les Miles just comes in and he hangs out and he's just shooting the breeze with all the guys on the LSU beat for like over an hour, just hanging out, yucking it up. Like, could you have ever seen Brian Kelly do something like that?
I knew you were going to ask that question.
That's the reason I brought the story up.
Not a chance.
No chance.
He is way too good to mingle with the commoners.
Yeah.
No chance.
He'd be off in the suite, with like doing his whatever. Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't have gone to baseball.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, and that's the thing too, because I think I criticized, because a couple years back when LSU was there at the College World Series, like BK shows up during like the championship series, like the three most important games. That's when Brian Kelly finally showed up. Les Miles was there like opening weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
like he wasn't just there so that the cameras could see him
right
during the championship series. He was there at the beginning of the week, so just night and day difference compared to the way Brian Kelly operates compared to any of these other guys.
And Marcus Freeman, just to bring it back home, I mean, he goes to all kinds of events that is going on with Notre Dame that are outside of the football season. You know what I mean? He's going to lacrosse games. He's going to women's basketball, men's basketball. He's all over the place.
Right.
Hockey. He goes to all kinds of events and still has time to go to his kids' events, by the way, as well. So just a completely different way of approaching life, I guess.
Joe, our resident Omaha resident, asked if this was the new ballpark or Rosenblatt. This was 2009, so it was still Rosenblatt, because I think it was 9 and 10, if I remember right, were the last 2 years of Rosenblatt, and then 11, I think, is when it moved downtown to what was then TD Ameritrade and what's now, what is it, Schwab or whatever it is. But yeah, that was still the Rosenblatt days when Les Miles showed up. So Josh Pate was on ESPN's Get Up this morning, and Mike Greenberg asked Pate who LSU should go after next if they could pick any coach on earth. And here is what Pate said.
If I'm running the search at LSU, I'm making Marcus Freeman tell me no. I don't care that I just went to Notre Dame and it failed. That guy right there embodies the toughness, the characteristics. He's got swagger that I can combine with championship resources. I can get transfers into LSU a lot easier than I can Notre Dame. He's got to tell me no before I ever move to option 2 on my list.
All right, so that's Josh Pate on ESPN this morning, rattling off all the things that Marcus Freeman brings to the table. Thoughts on what you heard, Vince?
He's not wrong. I mean, if I'm the AD at LSU, sure, I'll make him tell me no. That's fine, because Marcus Freeman would be a home run hire. And that doesn't mean that he's interested. So there's the difference with what people are getting freaked out about, whether it's fans or media or whatever. Florida, Penn State, LSU, the top 3 jobs that are around, right? Why would they not call Marcus Freeman? I would call Marcus Freeman too, and I would be like, hey, man, are you interested? And he'll say no, and then you move on. Yes, of course you reach out to Marcus Freeman. That doesn't mean he's interested.
Correct.
It's a complete difference. You know what I mean?
And that's what's got so many fans, like either frustrated or concerned or whatever it is, because his name keeps popping up. But it's the same thing for any of these jobs. The big 3, LSU, Florida, and Penn State. You would be a fool not to pick up the phone and at least inquire about Marcus Freeman. You are not doing your job as an athletic director if you're not picking up the phone and at least asking about Marcus Freeman.
Correct. 100%. You're not doing your job.
But that doesn't
if
mean
you don't
he's
do that.
interested and he's going to make that move.
Yeah, correct. Yep, completely agree. So I would call Marcus Freeman too if I had an open job. No matter what the level was, I would call Marcus Freeman and make him say no. And I would throw as much money as I possibly could to try to get him interested. It worked with Brian Kelly, and I would think, well, maybe it'll work for Marcus Freeman as well.
Decaf18 in the YouTube chat asks, why does the national media think Notre Dame is a stepping stone in the coaching world? Well, part of it, like this came up on the Dan Le Batard show last week, and they were talking about this, and they used Brian Kelly as the example. And again, Brian Kelly had been here for 12 years. He became the program's all-time winningest head coach. He took the program to a national championship game and a pair of college football playoff appearances. We know the reasons he left. Like, he wanted more. He kept asking for more. He wasn't going to get more in spite, like after they had given him all these different things. And so he decided that he had reached this glass ceiling, what turned out to be a glass ceiling here at Notre Dame, and he was going to have a better chance to go to LSU. But I think a lot of them are looking at this as, because Brian Kelly made that move, even though he had been here for 12 years, like 12 years does not a stepping stone make. If you were here, like in Marcus Freeman's case, for an example, if you're Marcus Freeman, you get to a national championship game in year 3, and then in year 4, you're going to spin that off and you're going to go someplace else. That's much more a stepping stone type move. But they're trying to use Brian Kelly, who had been here for 12 years, and saying that's a stepping stone. Like, he used it as a stepping stone. That's not what Brian Kelly used Notre Dame for leverage. And ultimately, as you said, Vince, after he had shopped and kind of, made the moves and all these different kind of things, he tried to remove what in his mind were all these obstacles by going to a place like LSU. Marcus Freeman does not see the same obstacles that Brian Kelly saw, the artificial obstacles that Brian Kelly saw when he was here at Notre Dame. So I like apples, oranges. Like, I think that's why so many are kind of are seeing Notre Dame in that light now.
Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship since 1988, and a lot of these SEC schools have. You know what I mean? Like, and so they look at Notre Dame as a stepping stone, and Marcus Freeman is doing his darndest to make sure that that's not the case, and that if Notre Dame just wins a championship or two, right? People aren't going to look at it that way anymore and stay consistent nationally. Then Notre Dame's not going to be looked at like that anymore. But to a lot of other people, that's the way Notre Dame looks right now. And I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. It's not a stepping stone job, but I understand why people think it is. And that's fine. Let them think that.
Yeah. I mean, any state school, you're not going to have, as far as transfers that Pate was, it's easier to get some of these players in and that kind of thing. But look at Tay Johnson. Like, Johnson a few weeks back, remember he made that comment about guys like me. Like, this is like Notre Dame is not I'm paraphrasing, obviously. Like, Notre Dame is not a place that guys like me typically go to. But that's like case in point, the way Marcus Freeman has shifted the thought of how you can recruit at Notre Dame. And that's not a guy. Tay Johnson is not a guy who Brian Kelly would never have even pursued a guy like Tay Johnson, but Marcus Freeman and his staff did.
Yep.
That's precisely why Notre Dame is in a completely different place in the pecking order today than it was when Brian Kelly was here.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I completely agree with you. Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, we will continue more of this conversation, some of it and how it pertains to Notre Dame and recruiting going forward for Marcus Freeman. That's coming up next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. Rapid Fire with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. So many comments in the YouTube chat here, Vince. Some good points, though, being made. Herrick says, if Notre Dame was a stepping stone, Denbrock wouldn't have come back. Biaggi and Mickens would be gone. I agree with that to an extent. I get what you're saying. It's a little bit different for assistant coaches than head coaches because, and like GMs as well, like Brian NY says it was a stepping stone for Chad Bowden. Again, like we're talking specifically about the head coaching position because assistant coaching positions, just by the nature of the game and what they are, those are just naturally stepping stones. But how many assistant coaches have we heard come here to Notre Dame when we get to talk to them, like, why'd you come here? When Notre Dame calls, you listen. Like so many of them say some version of that. So you're absolutely right. I don't think Denbrock sees this as a stepping stone by any means. Because like even listening to him and just where he is in his life and head coaching and stuff like that, he felt like he was coming back. He, his third stint here at Notre Dame, like he had every plan of coming back and is in it for the long haul. Again, same but different when it comes to assistant coaches versus head coaches, though.
Yeah, it's a different animal, obviously. Denbrock specifically, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, he wanted to come back. I know that his wife has roots here as well, and so that was a thing. That was definitely a family decision. You know what I mean? And it was the right one. Obviously, I'm obviously a big fan of that particular decision, and I think a lot of people are. But yeah, as a head coach, I don't at all see Notre Dame as a stepping stone job, but I can step outside myself and make the argument that it is the way that it's seen maybe in SEC country.
Well, like, you said before, Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship since 1988. That's fair. But when you sit back and look at the number of programs that actually have won national championships in that time period, it's really a pretty small sample size of other schools that, like, when you look at how many Alabama has won, Nebraska has, multiple, but again, like it's been a while for them. Oklahoma, like Ohio State has multiple national championships in that stretch. Florida has multiple national championships in that stretch. But as we were talking about last week, when you look specifically at Florida, their national championships are really more about like, their success has largely hinged on two coaches, Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. Everyone else who's come and gone through Florida has been spit out in, on average, a little bit more than 2 years. There's been a lot of turnovers there for a program that has won a couple of national championships. So like, again, like sit back. LSU obviously has won multiple national championships. But it's a very small amount of schools that have actually won the national championships in that time since Notre Dame won its last title.
I don't disagree with you. I think a lot of people look at Notre Dame as like a tier 2 school and that it would be a stepping stone to an elite job. And I think a lot of SEC people look at LSU as an elite job because they've won national championships more recently. And so they look at Brian Kelly using Notre Dame as a stepping stone to LSU, just as an example, right? And, you look at those top tier jobs, LSU, Alabama, Clemson, you could throw Florida in there because they've won. Name the school. I think there's probably 10 or so schools that you could name in that time frame that people could make the argument that Notre Dame is a stepping stone to that. That's not taking into account everything else that is Notre Dame. And I think that's where the mistake is made. So that's why Notre Dame's not a stepping stone job to me.
I agree. I completely agree with that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned does Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame need to be about the negative recruiting aspect of all this? Like whether it's the stepping stone conversation or just his name coming up near the top of all these lists of these high-profile openings?
Like a 2. I think that one of the things that Notre Dame does really well, Marcus Freeman in particular, and obviously his staff is included in this, is form those relationships with the recruits.
Right.
And if they have the relationships that I believe that they have, the negative recruiting that's going to come in is going to be very quickly rebuffed by Notre Dame, and it's not going to mean a thing. They're going to have to answer some of those questions, which is why I said 2, because it's just something extra they're going to have to do. But I don't think it's going to have anything palpable. There's not going to be a change in that recruiting based on that because of the relationships that Notre Dame has already built with these guys. So I don't, it's not going to be an issue.
And that's kind of my range as well. It's in the 2.5 range to me, just because it's an extra potential headache because you do have to answer those questions, but it's essentially the same conversation that he's talked about that he has with his team, the same conversation that you have with recruits and your assistants, those same conversations. Look, with success is naturally going to come interest, but I'm committed to Notre Dame and like the whole spiel. And I think that when you look at where they are right now and the connections that, again, like if this was Brian Kelly, I think it would be a different story. A guy like Brian Kelly, because he didn't have those same kind of relationships with the recruits, the players and those kind of things. And I think that it's a lot harder to potentially overcome, but because it's Marcus Freeman, I think that he's got those connections. He's involved early in the recruiting process, and it's just kind of a little bit of a headache. I'm sure it's going to come up, but you just say, hey, that's, we're good. I'm here for the long haul.
Yeah, exactly. And again, he's signed through 2030. Like, I don't know that they need to make a splash and have him sign an extension and all.
Well, because that's another thing. Is like there are people who are like, well, why isn't Notre Dame, being more proactive, getting the word out there? And that it's like you don't need that kind of stuff.
No.
And like that's a great point though, actually, that he can bring up to recruits. Look, I just signed an extension last year. I'm
less than a year ago. It was last December,
right.
Yep.
Joe's asking in relation to Bowden, is SC really a step up? Again, like,
it was for him because he's getting paid $1 million a year.
Paycheck. That's right. Like he's he might be the second highest paid, because what's his name? Michael Lombardi out at North Carolina, who is, making, $1 million times more than what he's worth right now, but he's the highest paid general manager in college football. I think Bowden might be the second highest paid. It's either him or the guy at Texas A&M. I think those are probably the 3 highest paid general managers. So, from Bowden's perspective, he says that he grew up an SC fan and that's where he wanted to be, and they're going to pay him all that. They overpaid to get Bowden because it served them, 1, to get someone who was better than what they had, and 2, to get that same person away from your biggest rival.
Yeah, exactly. That you don't want to play anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I am Tenzin. I have the son of Ang in the YouTube chat says, final comprehensive list of schools Freeman will go to based on family history and location proximity: Notre Dame, Ohio State, Air Force Academy. Can we be done now?
I don't think he's going to go to Air Force, even though his dad was in the Air Force. I don't see that happening. That's a pretty big move, obviously, and a step down. So he's not going to go to Air Force, but that's a great message. I love that. That's a great chat.
Joe said he was being sarcastic. Okay. We can't read sarcasm. So
it's tough. That is tough. Now, if Ohio State was open, I think there are legitimate questions as to whether Marcus Freeman would leave. That is the only job that I would be nervous about him taking off for, to be perfectly honest with you. That's the only one. And that one's not open, and nor will it be for a while. So,
I think Ohio State or the NFL.
That's fair.
I think the NFL, once the NFL cycle comes around, and that's going to happen in December, once, or I guess January, I guess the regular season is going to end late December. But you know what I'm saying? Once the NFL regular season ends, I think that Freeman's name is going to come up in those cycles again. But I also think that Marcus Freeman is going to be in the thick of a college football playoff hunt, and it'll kind of play out the same as it did last year.
I have no personal knowledge of this whatsoever, but I also feel like Marcus Freeman isn't going to leave Notre Dame with a challenge on the table, unfinished business. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that's him. I could be wrong. and maybe an NFL team will scoop him up or whatever. But we just dealt with this last year with the Bears job, and Marcus Freeman, and that didn't last very long. I just don't feel like he's going to jump anytime soon. But if he does leave Notre Dame at some point, it'll either be Ohio State or an NFL job. I agree with that.
Christopher says Boston College would be a good landing spot for BK, but do we think he would put in the work to make Boston College thrive? That would be a great comeback story. I do not think that he would. I think that that's way too big a job for him, honestly.
Well, and I also think that,
even though, that's where his roots are.
Yeah, Boston and the East Coast and all of those things, like that part of it fits, Christopher, and I don't disagree with that part of it, but I think he has reached a point in his career where he's not going to put the work in. It's just not going to happen. He's not going to go backwards. Now, is it possible that happens? Sure. That he has a complete renaissance to his career and starts just nose to the grindstone back like he was when he was up at Grand Valley? It's possible, but he's in his upper 60s. Like, I don't see that being the case at this point in his career. He's got enough money to sleep on a bed of $100 bills. Like, he doesn't need to work that hard anymore in his own mind.
It's like, I know you didn't watch the Rocky movie, Vince's, which, like sports fan who won't watch good sports movies, but like by the time you got to Rocky 3, and that was like kind of what that was about, was Rocky was battling not just other opponents, but also kind of the inner desire, like once you have all the spoils and the riches, everything else, like, do you still have that same inner drive to work the same? And in Brian Kelly's case, I think we can look at it and say, no, he does not. Like, and where would the incentive be at this point? Because he's going to leave LSU. Like, the buyout is $54 million?
54, yeah.
And that's not even including the money that he's already made. So like, he's like sitting on stacks of cash, and that's also not including the money that he already made from Notre Dame. Like, the man has more money than he'll ever spend in the rest of his lifetime. He has set his family up for generations with the money that he's made, but there's just not that much incentive to dig deep and go to work and do all those things to build up a program like Boston College or, any similar program like that for him.
Yeah, he's got plenty of money up to this point. He's got absolutely plenty of money. So he's going to have to be motivated to go someplace else. And I don't know I know there's going to be some contractual issues with that buyout. And I know that they're negotiating and all these different things. And if he gets another job or he goes into broadcast, whatever, he's got plenty of money. It doesn't matter. And when you've got that kind of money, are you motivated to work hard? You've got to have a special kind of motivation to do that. I'll be honest with you. If somebody handed me a $54 million check right now, I'd be like, Sean, I'm not coming on the show.
Working
on Wednesday.
Would be the last thing that I would be thinking about.
Yes, 100%. Are you going to grind on the recruiting trail? Are you going to do all the things that you need to do? No.
The guy was not a grinder on the recruiting trail to begin with. So
Correct.
Why would you think that he's going to grind when you give him all that money and he can go to his wine cellar and, like, he's more concerned with that kind of stuff, honestly.
Man. No kidding.
Josh says Vandy better give Clark Lee an extension. His name is going to be on someone's list, on a lot of lists, I think, right now.
I can't believe his name isn't being put out there more often, to be perfectly honest with you. He has freaking Vanderbilt in the top 10. Vanderbilt.
I know.
Like, I realize it's going to be tough to pry him away from his alma mater in Nashville and the whole – I get it. And they're making all kinds of improvements to their stadium, and they're doing everything that they want to do to keep him. He's one of those ones that I would call and make him say no. He's one of those ones, right around the same time as Marcus Freeman.
Right.
To be perfectly honest with you, because Marcus Freeman's winning. There's no doubt about it. Clark Lee's winning at Vanderbilt.
See, and that's the thing, is Clark Lee is the perfect candidate, I think, for a place like Penn State. But does Penn State want to go back to Vanderbilt, considering that's where they got James Franklin from? Like, does some of that aftertaste kind of stick with them? Would you want to go back there again? I don't know.
It's a great question. I don't know. Is what he's done at Vanderbilt sustainable? I think that's a legitimate question. Are they going to get spoiled with these wins and things like that and want to stay up in the top 10? Is it sustainable? Is he want to be the rebuild guy and go to a perceived higher level place and rebuild there? I don't know, but he would be a call I would make, man.
Also, some irony, by the way, in the fact that Brian Kelly's last 2 games, both losses, were against 2 of his defensive coordinators from Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know, right? And the last one,
and Mike Elko,
and the last one had no qualms in running it up on him. By the way,
no,
and
not at all.
That was not a hidden fact.
Do we still think that Mike Elko was not
Man.
talking about Brian Kelly a couple of weeks ago when he made that comment at his press conference?
Man, that was some pettiness at its finest, and I'm here for it. I'll just say that.
Let's take our last break, and then I'm back with a couple more topics. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire. Winding down Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. Vince, I'm going to close with a couple topics that have nothing to do with what we've been talking about.
Sounds good.
Some relevant, something from the weekend that I thought was very interesting. Fill in the blank. Bill Belichick going for 2, but coming up short in North Carolina's overtime loss to Virginia Saturday is blank.
I mean, it's good for him. I at this point, what has he got to lose? Like, might as well go for broke. Like, that's the way I look at it. I mean, being conservative at this point is not going to do him any good. And he, of all people, knows you only live for so long, so you might as well just go for it. I like it. That's a call I would have made.
I was trying to win the game. Trying to win the game. Did you see any of that press conference? Trying to win the game. Just trying to win the game. I don't know what you want me to say. Trying to win the game.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
That's so typical. Okay.
Trying to win the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to an extent, I get it, but why not just wait until the second or the third overtime when you have to go for two? I think
it's the second one.
Yeah. Why not just wait? It's a home game. You're not on the road. I realize Virginia is the higher ranked team, but you screwed it up for everybody else. You had Virginia on the ropes. You could have beaten them and caused a ripple effect in the rankings, actually had some kind of impact on the college football world in year one, rather than your girlfriend and everything else being the conversation. Just, I don't know. I guess I don't mind the mentality. You're going for the win and all that kind of stuff, but do it when you need to do it. I don't know.
It was a noon game. It probably was cresting around the 4-hour marks. It was almost 4 o'clock. Senior specials, man. You got to get there before 5. I mean, he's going out to dinner that night. He gets the he gets the kid special on one end and the adult on the senior special on the other. You got to get there on time.
That's true. That's true. Very good point. Very good point. Okay, I want to get your take on this. The NBA season is starting, and I know, neither one of us is big NBA guy, but this has to do with the broadcast. So yes. Focus on the broadcast. NBC and Peacock, of course, they're broadcasting NBA games this season. They're doing something unique with the Peacock broadcasts this year. They're going to have a 3-person broadcast team, the play-by-play announcer, and 2 different analysts. But here's the twists. Instead of having them sit together, at the table, play-by-play guy is going to be at the table, but each of the analysts is going to be next to the team's bench, and they're going to be actually broadcasting in that way, not just as a sideline reporter, but they're going to be broadcasting. They're calling that on the bench. The analysts are going to be able to listen in during timeouts and all that different kind of stuff. So what do you think about this idea? 3-person booth, analysts sitting by the bench doing their broadcasting.
I feel like they're thinking about this way too hard. I don't need somebody sitting next to the bench telling me what the coach is saying. You know what I mean? I just don't need
little booger mobile-ish, kind of.
Yeah. Remember that on the sideline and him going back and forth? That was so dumb. This is in that neighborhood for me. What's wrong with just having a play-by-play guy and a color guy sitting at midcourt calling the game?
3-person booths are hard enough to begin with.
Correct.
And throwing these guys together when they haven't really, done a game together. I'm just curious to see, does this sound disjointed? Does it actually sound like a good broadcast? Because it's going to require a lot, I think, to pull this off and make it actually sound good. So I'm curious just from that aspect.
Yeah, for sure. It is going to take a very seasoned play-by-play person to kind of run point with that kind of a broadcast. If you have a weak play-by-play person, it's going to be a disaster.
Exactly. So I'm very curious. All right, great feedback from the chat tonight. A lot of good stuff. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, and throughout the week as we gear up for another week of Notre Dame football. We'll talk to you then. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.